Every Man for Himself and God Against All, a memoir by Werner Herzog, translated by Michael Hoffman. This is the author Werner Herzog. Enkidu heaved a sigh and said, "Gilgamesh, the guard in the forest never sleeps." Gilgamesh replied, "Show me the man who can climb right up into heaven." Foreword. The original ending of my film Agirre, The Wrath of God went like this. The raft with the conquistadors has nothing but corpses on board, and when it reaches the mouth of the Amazon, the only living creature on it is a speaking parrot. As the Atlantic tide pushes back against the mighty river, the parrot is incessantly screeching two words, El Dorado, El Dorado. Then, while filming, I found a much better solution. The raft is overrun by hundreds of little monkeys, and Agirre raves to them about his new empire. Quite recently, I came upon another unverified account of the historical Agirre. Abandoned by all, and having murdered his own daughter so that she isn't witness to his disgrace, he orders his last follower to shoot him. The man sets his musket against Agirre's body and shoots him in the middle of the chest. "That was nothing," says Agirre, and he tells a man to load again. This time, the man shoots him through the heart. "That should do," says Agirre, and he falls down dead. I'm sure the version with the monkeys is a perfect ending for the film, but I wonder how many other possibilities, how many roads not taken there were for me, not only in film plots and stories, but in my life. Roads I never took, or only took years later. The title for this book is one I used before for my film about Caspar Hauser, but almost no one seemed able to produce it correctly. This is my second attempt with it. Perhaps it makes me sound like too much of a lone warrior, whereas, in fact, I almost always had helpers, family, women. With very few exceptions, this book is not about them. They all were independent, strong, beautiful, and smart. Without them, I would have been just a shadow of myself. What then did destiny have in mind for me? How did it keep changing the direction of my life? At the same time, many things remained constant. A vision that never left me, and, as with a good soldier, such qualities as loyalty, duty, courage. I always wanted to defend outposts others have already abandoned. How much could have been predicted? From the Japanese soldier Hiro Onoda, who finally surrendered 29 years after the end of the Second World War, I learned that in evening light it is possible to see a bullet fired at one like a tracer round. For a split second, one can see the future. I was just working on the end of my book. I looked up because I saw a flash across the window, something shooting at me, copper red and bright green. But it wasn't a stray enemy bullet. It was a hummingbird. At that moment, I decided to lay down my pen. The last sentence breaks off at the point I had just reached. Chapter 1: Stars, the Sea. The lamentations ended about noon. Some of the women had screamed and torn their hair. When they were gone, I went to see for myself. It was a small stone building by the cemetery in the hamlet called Chora Sfakion on the south coast of Crete, just a few houses scattered over the steep cliffs. I was 16. The tiny chapel had an opening, no door. In the half-dark within, I saw two corpses so close to each other they were touching. They were both men. Later I was told that they had killed each other in the night. In that remote, archaic part of the world, they still had the vendetta or blood vengeance. All I remember now is the face of the man on the right. It was lavender blue with splotches of yellow. Emerging from the nostrils were two enormous pads of cotton wool soaked full of blood. He had been hit in the chest with a load of buckshot. At nightfall, I went out to sea. I was working for a few nights on a fishing boat. It would have to have been on the few dark nights either side of the new moon. One boat towed 6 skiffs, called lampades, out to sea, each one of them with 1 man on board. There we were all dropped a couple of 100 yards apart and left to drift. The sea was as glossy smooth as silk, no waves. An immense silence. Each skiff had a big carbide lamp that was shining down into the deep. The lamp attracted the fish, especially cuttlefish. There was a strange method of fishing for them. At the end of a fishing line was a small shiny piece of wax paper about the size and shape of a cigarette. That attracted the cuttlefish, which grasped the booty in their tentacles. To help them hold on, the bait had a wire wreath fixed to it. You had to know just exactly how far down the lure was below the surface, because the instant the cuttlefish felt themselves being pulled up into the air, they would straightaway relinquish their booty and drop back into the water. You had to accelerate the last arm's length of line so that you were able to swing the cuttlefish into your skiff. The first few hours were spent in silent waiting until eventually the artificial moon of the lamp began to take effect. Above me was the orb of the cosmos, stars that I felt I could reach up and grab. Everything was rocking me in an infinite cradle. And below me, lit up brightly by the carbide lamp, was the depth of the ocean.